All right, so a Roth IRA is just that, it's a retirement account. You're allowed $6,000 of contribution per year. You are basically contributing taxed money, right? So it's not right. You can't write it off. Um, it's money that once you get your paycheck of net pay, that's the money that you put into it. You can withdraw contributions at any time for any reason with no penalty and no taxation on it. It's the profits that you can't touch until 59 and a half. If you decide you want it, or you have to take out the, if you decide you have to take out the profits, then it's gonna be 10% penalty plus whatever income tax bracket you fall under. All right, so the document that I posted is the strategy that I've been talking about everyone do, right? And this is more of a goal thing. So Roth IRA, you put $6,000 a year every January. Let's just make it simple. So every January you put $6,000, right? So if you look here on my chart, $6,000, 2.5% return on $6,000 is $150. Next month, February, you're at 6,150. 2.5% return on that money is $153.75. Come March, it's 6303.75. 2.5% of that's 157.59. So you guys get the concept here. Every month you're making 2.5% on the new total, right? Now it'd be pretty hard to be this consistent, but you can make more than a 2.5% return every month, right? So as I said before, right now for me, 8 months out of the entire year, we're in December. I started doing this strategy mainly back in April after COVID started. After it hit bottoms, then I jumped back in the market. I'm up to 95% return this year. So when I divide my 95% return into 12, I'm at 7.9%. Right. So I'm kind of handicapped because of the whole COVID thing. 4 months that aren't even a part of what I've done. So had I had additional 4 months, I'd probably be over 100% pretty easily. Right. So it's very, very doable. And the first 10 years are the most important when you're investing in your retirement because that's what gets you off the ground. And the moment you start hitting, $500,000 to $1 million, it becomes much more exponential returns. All right, so at 10 years, on this particular chart that I've drawn up, by the end of year 10, or let's just say at the start of year 10, $435,000, 523.99. 2.5% return is $10,888. Anybody in this world can live off of that. There isn't a single person you can't tell me that can't live off of that comfortably, mind you, very comfortably. That's driving brand new BMWs off the lot, living in 4,000 square foot houses with a swimming pool. Easy. So, after 10 years, and this is why I recommend young people do it as soon as they can, because the sooner you get started on this, the sooner you start making these returns, the sooner you get to a huge number, or rather, the sooner you get to retire, right? So for me, 10 to 20 years, 20 years, I'd be 57. Perfect retirement age. I personally would like to retire 50 or 55 years old. But I may or may not be able to, and I won't be able to, take money out of this Roth account's on 59.5 anyways, so that's really my target. So basically 23 years. So for me, for example, at 23 years, if I stick to this, excuse me, by the end of year 23, I'm at 27, almost $28 million. Again, 2.5% return every single month on your total account value. Very easy to do. The thing is, there is a catch. The catch is you've got to increase the amount of money you're putting into the market as you make the money, right? So if you've got, say, you start out at 6,000. Let's go to the 5% number real quick. So at 6,000, 300 bucks. 6,300 is 315. So by the end of the year, you're at $10,000, right? This is your whole entire account. You have to invest to see these numbers. You have to invest $10,262 to make 513, right? Now you could split it up and say, I'll put in 2,000 here, 2,000 there, and 2,000 here, and you're at 60% allocation. You can still easily make $513. I mean, I did a play earlier where I only put in 1,900 bucks and made 400, right? So it's very, very possible to do. Now, being consistent, that's probably going to be the biggest challenge in success here, because it's going to be hard for people to consistently make, say, 5% every month. So the reason I did two tabs, I did a 5% and a 2.5%, is because the 2.5% number is basically half. So let's say you've got 10 grand in your account, but you're only doing 50% total allocation of your account at any one moment of the market. So you're only doing 5 grand. You'd be getting a 2.5% return instead of a 5, right? So that's why I chose the 2.5 to put in here, because it gives you an idea of, well, if I start at 6,000, right, and I'm only going to invest 3,000 and make 5% off of $3,000, you're still going to be making 150 bucks, which is the 2.5% number, right? So that's why I put both of these in here, because I say target the 5%, but there is that caveat where you should only ever be putting 50% of your account into the market at any one time. So that's why I put the 2.5% tab in here, because it helps you understand that if you do 50% of your account and you're shooting for the 5% number, the 2.5% tab is what you should be looking at to expect what type of returns you're going to be looking at. Now, if you're only looking at 2.5% return and you're doing half of your account, it's half of 2.5%. So then it's what, 1.25, right? So it's going to be half of these numbers. Still guaranteed by year 20, you're going to be a couple of million at least, right? So half of this number, I would say, by year 20. If you're only making a 1.25% return every month, you're going to see half of this number relatively. Maybe not quite as much, because as the number builds and compounds, it just grows and grows and gets bigger and bigger. So I'd say maybe a safe estimate would be a third of this 11,481,000 number. So you'd probably see maybe 3 million in 20 years if you only made a 1.25% every month, right? So without compounding it, 1.25% a month is 15% return a year. That's still better than any mutual fund, better than any financial advisor, better than any 401k, better than all of that. So it still outshines everything, right? There were people earlier asking about 401ks and talking about, well, you can write off money with a 401k. I don't remember who it was. I just remember seeing it. So I'm not necessarily targeting anybody that said it if they're in here. I'm mainly just using an example because I've seen people try to, use this before and say, well, I can write money off with, my traditional IRA or my 401k's pre-tax dollars. That's a misconception, in my opinion. And I've done some research and analysis on it, and I believe that it's a misconception because the fact of the matter is, if a 401k, so a lot of these companies, you put 10 or 15% of your paycheck into something, and in 30 years you'll see a million, maybe 2 million. And if you start withdrawing from that and you still have your money in these accounts that don't really pay very good dividends, all they're really doing is equities that are long-term holds, and they're just gaining value, right? And these portfolios that a company invests in typically goes for things like Facebook, Microsoft, Exxon, Apple, stuff like that. And the problem is, in 30 years, if you've got, say, 2 million or even 5 million, and you start trying to withdraw that money, however much you withdraw, you're going to be put into a tax bracket, and you're going to be paying state and federal tax. If there's a required distribution, for example, so my mom, I'll use her as an example. She has a required distribution every year because she's 72, actually she's almost 75 now, but at 70 and a half, you're required to take a certain amount. I think it's 2.5% of your total account value. You're required to take that out because they want to tax you. So no matter what, at some point in your life, if you make it that long, you're going to be required to withdraw money out of your 401k or traditional IRA if you've rolled it over, and you're going to pay taxes on it. And you're going to be in a tax bracket that, it's going to depend on how much you have to withdraw. So if you got a $5 million account and you're required to withdraw, 2.5% every year, that's $125,000. You're in a tax bracket that's going to basically take about 30,000 of that, right? But if instead I don't sign up to be in a 401k or have a traditional IRA trash, and I just take the money that I've got and I invest it into a Roth IRA, right? I mean, look at the numbers yourself. The way I did this was, the way I created this was, um, so 6,000. I'm going to show you how I did this. So 6,000. Right, so I got that number, then I use the spreadsheet to do the math for me, right? So equals this one times 0.2 or 0.025, which is 2.5%, shows me 150. And I come down here and it equals this times this equals that. And I just take this number, drag it down, it does my calculation for me. And I take these two, drag them down, oops, and it does my calculation for me. So I can go entire 10 years, boom, right? See, the number's exactly the same. And I did a roundup, right? So I only did to the 10th, 100th place, to the right of the decimal. But basically, that's how it is. I mean, that's how you do it. It's very simple. And if you're investing and managing your own account, you're in charge of your future. No one's going to choose where your money goes. You choose. Now, you have to be good at minimum swing trading shares to make this work. This is what I preach for everyone as a foundational style of trading, right? Do it in your Roth. Do it in a retirement account. Go have fun doing options in a regular brokerage account, sure, but create your foundation for your future. And that's what this Roth is for. That's why I created this, because I want everybody to be aware the type of money that you can see in 10, 20, and 30 years. If you're consistent with it, and you put 6,000 a year. So like I said, the first 10 years are absolutely the most important. And when you build your account up to year 10 at 419,000, going into year 10, 419, you're already making 10 grand a month, right? Add 5 more years, you're at 1.9 million. You see how fast that goes? So it cuts the time in half. So it takes you 10 years to get 419,000. 5 more years, you're at, was that double? I'm sorry, let me just real see. 419, hell, way more than double. That's 300% change in 5 years. 300%. So once you get to, $500,000 in 5 years, you'll see 300% return on that account versus that garbage 401k, garbage traditional IRA. Who cares if a company's matching? That's trash because you're not gaining anything from that. You're gaining nothing. That doesn't even cover tax, right? So like my company, if when I was doing so I'm doing 5%, or I was doing 5%. I even cut that out because I just realized it's not doing anything for me, right? So at 5%, I was putting in, I think it was $300 a paycheck, and they were giving me 188, right? So 300 plus 188, that's $488, right? 488, and let's say um, in 10 years, or I'm sorry, when I retire, let's say my tax bracket's over 100,000, so that'll basically put me at 32% tax, right? Um, so my total contribution plus what the company would pay me is 488 minus 156.16 is the tax. I'm walking away with $331 basically off of everything that I've invested per paycheck in the future, right? Now you can assume that this is going to grow, but here's the other problem is when the market has a COVID situation or when the market has a recession and your 401k is 100% in the market, whereas this kind of account that I recommend, the Roth, I only recommend 50%. So basically you're putting yourself in the position that if the market does tank, you've got 50% of your funds to average down and get out for break even and then start rinse and repeating the same process you've been doing, right? Versus a 401k, you can't do anything with your money. Number one. Number two, it's at a 50% loss right now. And number three, you're stuck, right? I mean, you can't there's just nothing you can do. The company that you're with chooses what they do with your money. And until you quit that company, you can't access that 401k. You can't roll it over. You can't do anything with it. You're just stuck. So I don't know about you guys or girls, but I don't like being stuck. I don't like having my hands tied. I don't like being in the position where somebody dictates my life. So this is why I give this information to everybody because you need to be the ones that make decisions for your future and not somebody else making it for you. Right? And all these big companies and businesses, their goal is not to make you money. I think they're all part of the problem. You know, the reason the stock market is the way it is in some ways is because all these people have their money in the 401ks and they think they're getting something and the market gets bloated and these rich people with millions of dollars go in there and short something, make the market tank, they're making money while your 401k is getting crushed. Right? And also I refer to a house mortgage, right? So think of a mortgage as a 401k but backwards. And what I mean by that is when you start paying off your mortgage, you get a 30-year loan, the most money or your mortgage payment, majority of that is towards interest, right? So that's how your 401k is going to be in 30 years, right? So what you got to remember is the way I always explain it is don't invest in a 401k, take your money and put it towards your mortgage, because the less interest you pay, the faster you're going to get to retirement. If you got a $300,000 mortgage, you're going to end up paying $300,000 in interest if you're just paying a 30-year payment, or the minimum payment every year for 30 years. You're going to pay double, if not more, than what you actually paid for that house. So if you put money towards that, you rip away the interest from them and you keep it. And then if you pay your house off in 5 or 10 years, you've got 20 more years of the house interest that would have been taken from you to put in a Roth account instead of in a 401k, because the 401k, again, it's a lie to me. It's in my opinion, a major lie. It's meant for people that don't know what to do with their money. It's meant for people that haven't been educated on the situation, right? And it's meant to take away from people. It's not meant to do anything for you. You know, they have these fancy little, um, look what your account does in 10 years if you put this much in it. Look what your account does in 20 or 30 years if you put this much of your paycheck towards it. That's trash. Because guess what? 2008 recession happened. Everybody's 401ks got wiped in half at least. COVID happened 12 years later. Everybody's stuff got wiped in half, potentially. Mine went down 30%, my 401k. I haven't checked it lately. It might be back up to where it should be. I don't think it is. But I mean, imagine how long does it take to recover? 5, 6 years? From 2008 recession, I think my mom's 401k took 6.5 years to recover back to square one. So in 6.5 years, how much money could I have made in a Roth account, right? Ask yourself that question. All right. So with that, I will let people ask questions, and let's keep the questions strictly to retirement accounts or anything that I've discussed so far. I'm happy to talk about any of that. And if you're muted, at me on one of the trade channels and I'll unmute you.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
I was curious. What year did you stop adding the $6,000 to the Roth on that model you made?
None.
Okay. All right. Thanks.
On that note, though, I mean, I'd say by the time you get to, by the time you break $1 million, let's say by year 12, if you're in the 2.5% area, by year 12, you can stop. Do you really need to put $6,000? I mean, you can. It'll help you. I mean, once you get to 2.5 to, I mean, look. So this column C, these are monthly returns of 2.5% monthly. What's $6,000 a year going to do when you're making this monthly? Let's be real with ourselves. Not much. It increases your monthly income every year. Well, so let's see. So year 15, from 14 to 15, $6,000 in your account increases your account value by $1,200 of interest or return. So from December to January, it looks like about 1,200 bucks gain per month, right? And then year 15 to 16, it looks like almost 2,000, right? So I mean, it still helps out, I think, pretty well. But I mean, I think that's a question that, or a suggestion that, if you're doing extremely well at year 15 and you've got 5 million or 3 million or whatever, I mean 2 million, you can probably not put in 6,000, and by year 15 you can probably withdraw every 6,000 you've put in. So 15 times 6,000, you can withdraw $90,000 from this account and it's not going to make a difference, because if you're at almost $2.6 million, what's 90 grand? You can withdraw your 90 grand and go have fun, and it's okay, right? It's not going to matter because you're not going to get taxed on it. There's no penalty on that withdrawal of contribution, and you've got 2.5 million left. Now you're just working off pure profits at that point. You know what I mean? So that's why I say the first 10 years are absolutely the most important. If you can smash it out, do 6,000 every single year and make 2.5% return, you do it for 15 years. By year 15, you've got $2 to $3 million. You can withdraw your 90,000 and go buy a brand new car off the lot if that's what you've been yearning for. Go to Tahiti or Fiji or Bora Bora if that's what tickles your fancy. I mean, the limit is the sky, right? It's limitless. There's nothing you can't do now at this point. I mean, for me in 15 years, I'll be 47, 52. $90,000 will be pretty fun. 52. I'll still probably be working. I'll be honest with you, I could probably quit and every month take 10% of these returns, right? Every month I could take 10%. So what's 49? Let's say 49,000 times 10%. That's 4,900 bucks a month. I'd pay income tax on it, and I'd pay a 10% penalty. So I'd probably be down to, let's see, times 0.32. Well, first I need to find out what's 4,900 a year times 12, 58,800 times. I think that tax bracket's right around 27% maybe. So minus 5,800. Oops, shit. 12 times 49 times. Actually, I think it's 25%. Might be lower. Minus 5,800. So I'd be working with $44,000 a year, and then times 10%. So $39,000, $690,000. If I paid tax and a 10% penalty every month, I want to take 4,000 or 5,000 bucks or 6,000. I still have an insane amount of money that's compounding. I get to live, you know, chilling hard, do nothing, make a lot of money just chilling. I could probably go ahead and start taking my Social Security for a lot less of a distribution. Maybe net $5,000 a year, or I'm sorry, a month when I were, at age 52. And then in 7 years, then I can really start living it up, right? And in that 7 years that I'm still banking, making a ton of money, I should have, I mean, somewhere up here, I'm talking, like I said, 23 years. Let's just go to year 2021, since if I'm going to start removing cash, or let's go to year 20. I mean, I'm 8 million at least, making 200,000 a month, $225,000 a month. Like I can withdraw $18,000 every month, and it makes zero difference, right? You guys understand what I'm going with here? Like, you don't. I mean, if you got this much money, and your strategy is working this way, and you're only looking for 2.5% return every month, by year 15, year 20, you can withdraw with penalty and still live a fantastic life. Better than anybody you know. I'd put money on that. All right, who else has questions?
Here.
I can hear you, yes.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you.
Hey, My question was, is there any sort of like account minimum balance that you must have, or like, is there like a minimum amount that you must put in every year to, keep the IRA going?
No, a Roth you can put whatever you want. 6,000 though is the max. So that's the only limitation is the max you put in. So you can put whatever you want. You can put $50 if that's all you got. If you're young,
Okay.
it's okay. It's okay to put 500 a year. If you're 18 years old, put $100 a month. That's okay. Still make your 2.5% return. If you're 18 years old, let's say 19 because it makes the math easy. 59 minus 19. What's that? Is that 30 years? Shit. Really bad at math. 40 years. I mean, man, 40 years to build something like this? That's insane. That's insane. That's so much time. So much time. You only really need 15 or 20. But if you've got 30 or 40, man, you could. There's no reason why you can't be a billionaire if you're following the 2.5 to 5% rule. There's no reason why you can't have hundreds of millions of dollars. I mean, again, in 30 years, 2.5% return every month, a $6,000 contribution every year for 30 years, you're up in the $200 million range. 200, geez, $222 million. That's and this is conservative what I'm doing here. This is a conservative number. This is something easily achievable and attainable. Again, 2.5% off of 10 grand is $250. I can make that in a day. I could put 10 grand into one thing. In a day, it'll flip and make $250. That's like nothing. I
Yeah,
could have
it's like
made that today, easy, off of two positions I'm in. I could have made, if I had 10 grand in there, easily $250. Easy.
would you recommend depositing like a lump sum in the beginning of the year, or like doing it monthly? Or
I
is
would
there like
go,
benefits to your
yeah,
strategy?
yeah. I would put it I would put 6,000 in as fast as you can because you're able to compound that money faster. If you section it off and do 500 here, 1,000 there, 500 here, 1,000 there, you're not able to utilize that huge number to compound faster, right? So compound interest or compound returns, do the best with the most money that you can. And again, you're only allowed 6,000 a year. But if you split it up into 12, so 6,000 divided by 12, that's $500 a month, right? So I'm gonna show you what that looks like. Okay. So if I do, let's say I start out with 500 and I make a 2.5% return.
Are you
Oops.
sharing your screen right now?
Yes, I am.
Sorry, I'm not able to see it, but I'm looking.
Times 2.5. Okay, and then I'm just gonna do this math real quick for you so you can see what I'm doing. Look at the difference. I'm sorry. No, that's incorrect. Hold on. Let me fix that. Let me think real quick. All right, so this plus this. I know how to do this. Hold on a second. 500. So equals this plus this plus this. Let's see if that works. It still wants me to do it like this. So I'm gonna have to probably do this a few times. All right, so I'm gonna have to go through the whole thing real quick.
No worries. I mean, if it's taking up too much time, I'll give the floor back to the other members of the group. But thank you for clarifying and giving more insight on that.
Sure. I mean, I'll do it real quick. It's not gonna take long. It's just 7 or 8 months. So just 1 second. Equals this. Shit. It would work if I did it properly. Yeah. Okay. Really like Excel. It's so awesome. Look at the difference. $800 in difference
It's
versus
crazy.
putting 600 or 6,000 at the start of the year compared to 500 every month. $800 difference. It's the same percent return. Imagine how that compounds all the way down. 800 might not seem like a lot initially, but in 10 years, that number is going to be very wildly different, in my opinion.
Would you foresee like any sort of things like an interest rate change, like as we progress further on, or is that something that's going to be station? Is it going to remain the same as you go about your
Well, interest rates aren't going to make a bit of difference for this. It's not a bank account. I mean, there is a money market interest rate, but it's really low. It's minuscule. Not going to make a bit of difference. Interest rates aren't going to affect this type of account. It's not going to affect the equities that you're swinging. It's not going to affect the market as a whole. As far as the stock market, interest rates affect banking. They affect borrowing. They affect the dollar itself across other um, foreign exchange currencies. But what we're doing here, interest rates mean nothing.
very cool. Thank you.
You're welcome. Okay, who else has any questions about this stuff?
Can you hear me?
I can.
What are the rules on the money that you make? Like, if you're making 50, that like, is there a amount where if you make that amount, you can't put money in an IRA or something like that? I'm just
So the only rule behind that is if you're making as a single person $139,000 a year, your career, your day job or whatever, if you're making that much,
Mhm.
you can't contribute to a Roth. I think it's 213,000 for married couples. So if you're making that much money, you can't contribute to a Roth.
thank you.
You're welcome. Okay, who else?
I have a question.
Okay.
So where do you open up a Roth IRA account?
You can open it up pretty much any trading company. I mean, I use Schwab. You can do TD Ameritrade. You can do one on Webull. You can do E-Trade, Fidelity, Vanguard. Um, I'm assuming you can do it in Robinhood, but please don't. Um,
Okay.
but yeah, I mean, if you're a new trader and you don't really know these other platforms too well, go with Webull.
Okay.
But and you can, if you want to move that account to a different company, I'm sure you can. I'm sure you can roll your IRA, your Roth IRA, to a different company. I don't see why not. You're going to pay a small fee to get out, to swap it
Oh.
over, but
Mm.
you know, like if you want to switch to Thinkorswim, if you're on Webull and you got an IRA in Webull or Roth, and you're like, you know what, I've been using Thinkorswim for a while now. I like it. I think I want to start using it instead of Webull. So instead of just doing charting on Thinkorswim and trading on Webull, why don't I just go do both on Thinkorswim? I mean, some people use Thinkorswim to chart and trade on Webull. I get it. I understand why they do it. But if you did want to switch over, you could. There's no rules around not being able to, but you will pay a small fee, I'm sure.
Oh, I see. Okay, got it. Thank you.
You're welcome. Okay, who else? Anybody?
What's up, man?
Hey,
I just have a quick question regarding 401ks and Roth IRAs.
okay.
Which one do you recommend instead? Because I know they're both for retirement and stuff like that. Which one? Which one's really better? Or what are the main differences between them?
Well, Roth is what I've been talking about. You pay no tax on profits. Okay, whatever you put in is taxed money. They're not going to be able to tax you when you pull profits out, but you have to wait till you're 59 and a half. And I'm almost certain it's the same thing with a traditional IRA. Traditional IRA has the same rules as a 401k. Can't withdraw until you're 59 and a half. Both you can write off on your taxes. 401k is employee or employment led, which means you don't decide where your money goes, somebody else does. Whereas a traditional IRA, you choose. But a traditional IRA, I mean, you're only limited to $6,000 a year, whereas a 401k, they'll allow you up to 19,000 a year, I believe. There's a reason for that, because they want you to throw your money at it so that you lose money, because the market's going to correct. They know it, and the rich people at the top know it, and they want you to put your money in so that you bloat the market up and pump it. And then when it's at a high, everybody that's rich that's not stuck in these 401ks, they can get out of their positions, but the 401k people are stuck. I highly
Okay.
recommend Roth over everything. Retirement. Roth
Okay.
retirement over everything.
Cool.
Nothing's going to give you these returns. Nothing. Not a financial advisor, not even a hedge fund, in my opinion. Hedge funds won't even talk to you unless you got a couple hundred million anyways. So, and they're going to take some off the top. You better believe that. They're going to take a percentage off your total account. All financial companies and advisors, they're going to take 2.5% off your total account, not what they make you. So think about that too. So that's why I say manage your own retirement, manage your own future. You are the gatekeeper of your money. And opening a
Okay.
Roth and trading a Roth and doing exactly a plan very similar to this, you're going to have more money than anybody could have promised you, except for the lottery, if that ever happens.
All right. Just another question. If that's all right.
Sure.
So like, what if, let's say I have approximate like $5,000 right now to invest? Would you recommend because I'm starting to get into trading and stuff like that, options trading as well. Would you recommend that I put in that money to my Roth IRA, or do you think it's a good idea to trade and try to grow my account a little bigger
Well, I
for
mean,
that? Right?
my opinion is going to be different than other people, could be different than you. You know, what I would do with my money is going to be very different than a lot of people. I'm more of a
Right.
conservative person. I'm not interested in trying to be, you know, growing my money in the sense that I want to take 5 grand and turn it into 10 grand and then invest it into my Roth. I'm more interested in taking that 5 grand, put it in a Roth, and grow it. I'm more interested in trying to build my actual career or my income outside of the market to where I can put 6,000 a year and still be living comfortably and even have extra money to play with options. That's the goal, in my opinion. That's what I would tell everybody to do. Now, what you do with your money and how you decide to go about it is that's something you're going to have to decide. But if it
Right.
were me, I would do exactly what I'm telling you here, or exactly what I've shown on this chart.
Okay.
Because I'm not interested in trying to make quick money with options.
Okay.
I'm not. But some people are good with it. Some people, that's their thing. Some people have certain strategies that work really well for them, and that's awesome. I'm not knocking anybody that wants to do options. I mean, the server is an option server, but in education, when I try to teach people, the best thing to do is to do things that are going to secure your future, not present day or tomorrow, but in 30 years or 20 years. Because I mean, especially if you're 18 or 25 or even 30, hell, if you're even 50 years old, at 50 years old, you still have 15 years to make money. Right? You still have
Right.
15 years of life. If you're 50 and you want to retire at 65, and you're only, you can put 6,000 towards a Roth and do what I'm saying here, in 15 years you'll be living fabulously, you know?
Right.
So it doesn't matter really how old you are unless you're 70, then you don't really have any more time, because there's another caveat to a Roth. Whenever you open a Roth, before you can withdraw profit, it has to mature 5 years. So you have to wait 5 years until you can touch profit. So for example, if I'm 57, I can't get my money at 59 and a half. I have to wait a total of 5 years. So I have to wait till I'm 62 before I can take my money. But if you're 18, in 5 years, you can't touch your profit anyways. So great.
Right.
Doesn't even matter, right? They only have that caveat in there for people that are, 50 plus years old. You know, it's kind of stupid, but whatever.
Right. Cool, man. Well, I appreciate your help and all of your feedback.
Of
Thank
course.
you so much.
Welcome. Okay, who else?
I got a question.
Okay.
Can you hear me?
Yep.
What about the positions you hold? Like, where we buy in like index funds or just regular stocks?
I'm not totally sure what you mean. I mean, what about the positions that you hold? I'm not.
Yeah, like 401k. Like we usually when you open a 401k, you can buy like index funds, and your target it will go to to bonds or whatever you decide your money go to.
You
Um,
can't do anything in a 401k.
you can do it.
In a 401k, the company that you work for, they're the
Hmm.
ones that make the decisions. You can, so I can open up a self-directed 401k in my work, but I'm only allowed to choose mutual funds. I'm not allowed to do anything else. They can have indices in them. They can have certain types of ETFs or whatever, but I can't specifically say I want to invest in Netflix and I want to flip it today and get out
Yeah, that's what
tomorrow.
I meant. That's what I meant. Like the what on what they have, you can choose. Where you decide, but on the road, like you can invest on Netflix or regular stocks?
Yeah. A Roth you
Oh,
can
okay.
you can trade anything you want.
All
It's
right.
completely manageable for you. I mean, I'm in
So you're
Tesla.
not limited to what they say
Not
you
at
can
all.
buy.
Not at all.
Okay.
I mean, I'm in Tesla. I'm in Apple. I'm in pets. I'm in Rocket Mortgage. What else am I in? Gold. I'm in Wheaton Precious Metals. Trying to think some other things I'm in. There's a few others I can't think off the top of my head right now, but I've traded Moderna. I've traded Altria. I've traded Exxon. I've traded Oxy. I've traded anything that you can think of. I mean, I've traded AMD. I've traded Intel. Um, you name it. I could go out there and pick the SPY. I could trade the SPY. I could trade the Dow Jones. I could trade XLE, XLF. It doesn't matter. I can find mutual funds. They have their own ticker symbols too. I could trade those. I can do whatever I want. It's not like a 401k where you get to pick between 3 funds and it's either they call it low risk, medium risk, high risk. There is no such thing. They're all high risk because it's all equities and it's all in a big fund and your money gets split up equally between them. They'll have 30 different equities in a fund, and if you put in $300, $10 goes to each. I'm sorry, is it? Let me do some math real quick. Yeah, it's basically going to be $10 per stock of 30, right? So it gets split up, and it doesn't matter if it's Apple or Tesla or whatever is in there that they've chosen. It becomes fractional in a 401k work fund. And they say, oh, this is low risk, this is medium, this is high. When I first started at my company 5-6 years ago, I looked into that and I said, all right, let's see what kind of companies are in these funds that they call low risk. What did I saw something in there that I was like, there's no way that this is low risk. Damn, I can't think of what it was, but I just remember seeing the ticker and I'm like, no freaking way this is low risk. No way. This thing jumps around 10-15% every other day. How is this? I think it was like Roku maybe. And I'm like, there's no way this is low risk. This thing jumps around like it's on a trampoline. How's that low risk? And I was looking at these funds and I'm like, they're all equities. Tell me how that is low risk. How's that any different than you going into your own portfolio and saying, I want to decide what goes into my account, not some company, not some guy on the other end that says, you know what, we're going to scam these people. We're going to throw money into these 30 stocks. And you're not even really investing. You're just throwing money at something. That's not investment to me, in my opinion. There's no investment in handing somebody money and saying, here, go put it in something you think is going to work. There's no such thing as that's not investing. I don't know what that is, but it's not investing. Investing is taking your own money and going and saying, I see the charting on this. This is at a support level. I'm going to get in. I'm going to sell it when it goes higher. Or looking at fundamentals of a company and saying, you know what? I think in 3 or 6 months, this company is going to double. That's investing. All right. Who else?
Thank you so much.
You're welcome. Who else?
Hey, I got a real quick question.
Okay.
I don't mean to ask any questions that have already been answered, but I just got on, and then I was just wondering if you would be able to sell options against your holdings in a Roth.
You can. I wouldn't recommend it, but you can.
Okay.
I have level 0 options, so I can do cash puts and covered calls. I can also, actually, I got level 1. I can buy options as well, but I just don't. I don't believe. I think there's just more risk in options. No matter what strategy you're doing, the safest thing to do in a retirement account is shares. But if that's what you want, you're comfortable with it. By all means, that's your account. So you do what you think is best and what you're comfortable with.
Awesome. Thank you.
You're welcome. Okay, who else?
Actually, I have a question.
Okay.
So, like, what would you say is the worst part about a Roth? Like, they sound pretty nice.
I can't think of anything bad about it, other than it's a retirement account and you got to wait till you're 59 and a half to take profits.
And did you already talk about how much? Like, is there a limit to how much money you could put into it? Like, it's based off your income.
Well, there's a limit no matter what. $6,000 a year. That's the most you can put in. But there's also a limit to how much you make on your day job. So as a single person, it's $139,000. If you're married filing jointly, it's $213,000 that you can make in a year. If you exceed those numbers as a single or married filing jointly, you can't contribute to a Roth.
Interesting. So if I'm single and I make $200,000 at my job, then I can't contribute to a Roth.
Correct.
Uh,
I mean, at that point, you know, you get a lot of money. You can afford to go into a brokerage account and, or I mean, I'm not sure if, let me see if you can do a traditional account. Let's see. Hold on a second. Hmm. So it looks like just age, it's 70 and a half. You can't contribute after. They actually require you to take a distribution. I'm not seeing anywhere where it says you can't contribute to a Roth, or I'm sorry, a regular traditional IRA. I have to look further into that, but
What?
so far it looks like you can probably contribute
Yeah.
to a traditional IRA if you're making more than 139,000. But for a Roth, you probably can't. I know you can't. The beauty of that is, if you're making that kind of money and you put money towards a traditional IRA, you're only going to be able to write off $6,000, unfortunately. But at some point in your life, let's say you're 55 or something, and you got a lot of money, decent amount, enough to live off of, where you don't need a job, and you want to open. I mean, you could open a Roth, you just can't contribute to it. So, if you're in that situation where you got $200,000 a year, open a Roth and it's just going to sit there. You're not going to be able to touch it. But once you get to a point where your income's not 200,000 anymore, it goes under 139, and you start taking like Social Security, you got some kind of retirement money from a company, and you've got a little bit of money here and there, and you're bringing in, let's say, 100,000 a year at that point. Then the traditional IRA that you've been investing in for years, you can roll that over to a Roth IRA. You're not going to pay penalties or anything. You're just going to pay tax on it, right? So you can roll over 6,000 every year. So if you're age 55 and it's already a vested account, which means it's been open for longer than 5 years, you can roll over traditional IRA funds to a Roth and only pay tax, no penalties. And then, in 10 years or so, that account's going to have grown to where now it's making tons of money. And that traditional IRA, you can just continue to roll it over and only pay the minimum tax and take your distributions from the Roth, right? So there's ways around it, right? So just kind of keep that in mind. I mean, if you're making 200K, maybe the traditional IRA is where it's at for you, because a Roth isn't. You can't. Too much. You're making too much.
Gotcha. Thank you. And did you talk about like the difference between a regular IRA and a Roth? Is it just that a regular one's you get taxed on and a Roth you don't, or?
Yeah, so I mean, they're both backwards from each other. So Roth, you pay tax dollars to contribute, whereas a traditional IRA, you can write off tax dollars. But when you start withdrawing at 59 and a half, Roth is not taxed, whereas a traditional IRA is. So think of it as I pay tax now, they only hit me on my income today, and that's it. And then later on in life, when I'm retiring, they don't get a dime. Or I'll write off some taxes here and there, $6,000 worth every year, and then I'll grow my account to the same number. Let's say you grow both accounts to $20 million, right? And you've been getting $6,000 tax write-offs every year on a traditional IRA. But the moment you start withdrawing from that $20 million account, they're going to be taking whatever tax bracket you withdraw. So if you pull out 150K, you're paying probably 40% tax depending on the state you live in. Whereas a Roth IRA, they're not taking a dime from me. So you're going to be paying 50,000 in tax from 150, give or take, and I'm not going to be paying anything. So it's suffer now, not really suffer now. I mean, I guess sacrifice is the better word. Sacrifice now for what you want today for the future that you're looking to have, or do a little bit of sacrifice and get some tax write-off, but in the future get killed when you start withdrawing. I mean, again, if you've got 50 million, let's just go wild. You got 50 million, $100 million in your traditional IRA, and I have 50 or 100 million in a Roth, and I want to go buy a $10 million property with 500 acres and all kinds of fancy stuff. When I pull that 10 million out, I got 10 million. When you pull that 10 million out, you got 6 or 7 or 5, right? So think about that. That's the difference. Again, that's why I recommend a Roth IRA. Because if you are successful, if you trade it properly and you make a ton of money, the government's going to be looking at you, not going to be able to do anything. They're going to be just saying, wow, why did we open up the chance for Roth IRAs? Because this guy right here, if we had not given him the chance to pay no tax, we'd be getting a piece of that 50 million.
So I shouldn't go for my raise at work and just stay at 130. Live an easy life.
Well, I'm not saying that either. I mean, again, if you're making that kind of money, you're living good anyways, right? I mean, you know, put it in a traditional IRA. It's okay. I mean, you got to. I think it's 139. So I mean, if you get a raise, get to 139 or 138. But I mean, if you exceed that, I mean, damn, you're doing well anyways, right? So do a traditional IRA at that point. Don't do a 401k. Don't do that. But do a traditional IRA or even a regular brokerage. Because if you can take money, if you got extra money just sitting in the bank, you got 50,000 sitting in a bank collecting dust. At minimum, open up a brokerage account and do the same thing. Yeah, you're going to pay tax, but you can still grow the money, right? I mean, you'll never need a Roth IRA if you're making $145,000 a year and you're putting 50,000 into a brokerage and making 15 or 20,000 off of that every year, or 25,000 the first year, and then it compounds and you're paying 40% tax. You're not going to need a Roth because the goal is to continue to grow and continue to make money, right? So this is for people that don't make that much. This is for people that are, in my opinion, much younger, 18 years old, when you're not making much. Throw money in it because, the goal for everybody is to make a lot of money in life. Most people out there think, I want to make, well, not most. A lot of people out there will say, I want to make 200,000 a year. They don't even think about Roth IRAs, right? But there's people out there that'll never breach 100,000. This is for them. There's people out there that are 50 years old making 125,000. This is for them, right? If you're making over that threshold, maybe marry somebody, and then you can file jointly. As long as your income's not over 213,000, you can contribute to a Roth IRA. And in that scenario, both of you can open up account for you and your wife. That's what I do. I got 2 accounts for us. I put 6,000 a year. Well, gonna at least. So there's that. Marry somebody making 50,000 a year or 60,000 a year. Super hot wife that's a secretary somewhere or something. Be the breadwinner. Let her make money so she can go buy fancy shit for herself if that's what makes her happy. And vice versa for women. If there's women in here who are successful women, and you marry a guy that's a hunk, he's built, and he's a personal trainer at a gym, and he only makes $40,000 a year. Well, both of you together is not 213. Both of you can contribute 6,000 a year towards your Roth IRAs. Both of you can grow both of those accounts. So I mean, think about this for a second. This spreadsheet is just for one person. Imagine having 2 of these accounts. Right? My wife and I have 2. So I look at this and say, if I can just do both of our accounts 2.5% every month in 15 years, we're both going to have $5 million, $6 million, or 5.2 million or something like that between the 2 of us instead of 2.6. So there's ways around it, I guess, is really what I'm trying to say. Does that answer your question?
It does. I'm just confused, like, why everybody doesn't do this. It sounds like really too good to be true.
Because nobody knows about it. Nobody knows. Everybody go ask them, what's a Roth account? And you tell me if you find one person that knows. But if you ask somebody what's a traditional IRA or what's a 401k, they might know. Go ask your parents, what's a Roth account? Unless they're smart investors and they're rich, then maybe they'll know. But I'd be willing to bet that not too many people know what a Roth IRA is. Not too many know that you can get away from paying taxes to the government.
Could you make the argument that people are chasing higher returns with other forms of investment rather than putting it in a Roth?
Absolutely. I'd say 90% of those servers doing that.
Like, in my opinion, like personally to me, that's kind of what I'm doing, but that's because I have time on my side, like seeing my age and everything like that.
But that's my argument, is the younger you are, the better position you could be if you did a Roth. Right? A lot of people that are doing what you say, they're not thinking about their future. They're not thinking about 30 years from now. I'm not saying everybody, but most are probably not thinking, where am I going to be in 55 years, or when I'm 55 years old? I was thinking 5 years ago, I'm not trying to be doing IT until I'm 60. My head's going to explode. I work in a production environment, operations. Shit hits the fan. You've got the VP, the SVP, the the organization VP. You got the CEO and the COO and fucking CFO and CTO. All these people on a phone call, and they're breathing down your neck, asking you when you're going to get this server up. Imagine the kind of stress that is. That's not the type of shit that I'm trying to do for the rest of my life. Not till I'm 60 or 70. My mom worked till she was 70 years old. My dad worked till he was 68. I'm not doing that. I'm trying to retire at 55. That's my goal. And if I got to withdraw money from one of these accounts at that age and pay penalties, and if I've got, you know, 3-4 million in both accounts each, I can afford to withdraw 10 grand a month. It's not going to hurt me at all. I'll pay 10% off the top. That's $1,000 a month plus, I guess 35% tax depending on the state that I'm in at the time. 27% if I'm in Texas, no state tax. So it's like, who wants to work till they're 60 plus years old? I sure don't.
Yep, nobody wants to.
Yeah, I don't think
But
anybody in here wants to.
I don't mean to take the conversation away from investment accounts, but what if someone is looking into saving or stacking their money into looking to buy a rental property for their long-term sources of income?
I mean, again, additional streams of revenue are always good, no matter what you do, right? In my opinion, real estate is meant for people that are making a lot of money, where they can throw money at it. Like, I want to get into real estate when I can throw $1 million at it. That means I can go out there and get I want to find properties, say $250,000 properties, and put 20% down on each one, because I don't want to buy the house outright, because then I don't get to write off a depreciation value, right? So $250,000 times 20%, that's 50 grand. How many houses can I put 50 grand on out of $1 million? Let's see. About 50,000. I can buy 20. Can buy 20
Yep,
houses.
that's very true. Plus, you don't want to be paying much more like in interest a month rather than like towards principal if you put like 5 or 10% down on a house.
Well, the only reason why I recommend the 20% is so you can avoid PMI. Other than that, I would say don't put anything down, because you want to pay interest, because you're not the one paying it. Your renter is. And when you get to a point where you're 60, 70, 80% liquid in that house, meaning if you buy a $250,000 house and there's $200,000 in equity, I'd refinance and I'd take as much out of it as I could, as much as they would allow me to take off of it, and I'd recycle it and do it again, because depreciation value is beautiful. Depreciation value is 250,000 divided by 27 and a half. You write off $9,090 every year off that property. And if you're only bringing in $300 to $500 a month, it's not going to equal $9,000. And then whatever's left over from that depreciation value, you can write that off on something else, whatever income you're making. If it's your regular day job, so let's say hold on a second. Let's say you make $500 a month off of a property. This is after mortgage is paid, after the rental company's paid, any HOA or monthly tax if you do it that way. You make $500 a month. All right, that's kind of pushing it, in my opinion. I think it's closer to 300. Let's say 300. So if you make $300 a month times 12, that's $3,600 minus 9,000. You can still write off $5,400 from your income. That's the beauty of depreciation, because it doesn't just apply to your rental property. It applies to your income as a whole, because you are servicing debt. That value of your debt is depreciating. So you're allowed to write that off your income. That's how when people say Trump's not paying tax, of course he's not. That's how. Depreciation value. He'll refinance his buildings, take the cash that his tenants have paid that building off with, and he'll go buy a jet. Right? He got billions of dollars. His buildings are worth 200-300 million, and he's got 10 or 15 in New York City. Let's say they're 100 million, and he's got 10 or 15. People talk shit about him, but that sounds pretty smart to me. Regardless of the type of personality he has, I could care less. I'm interested in how he's making money because I want to do it, right? And that's one thing I learned about Trump. He's not paying tax because of the depreciation value for investors. So again, if his building is 150 million, right? Let's just do the math real quick. 150 million. And let's say he puts down 20%. That's $30 million. So he's at $120 million, right? That's needs to be paid off, right? And that 150 million depreciation value on that is 5.4 or $5.5 million a year that he can write off depreciation. Imagine if he's got, there's no telling how much he's making on rent on those buildings. One building, I'd say 3% return off the total value of the building. Typically, when people do real estate, they say 2 to 5%. Anything over 5% is fantastic. So let's say 3% times the value of the building. It's $4.5 million. That's free money. He still has a million more to go. Right? He's still got $1 million more to go. Think about that. And I'm talking about 3% return as in what you make after your tenants pay the mortgage. So see if you can swallow that.
Cool. Awesome. Thank you so much for your explanation. I'm finding a lot of value in this lecture, and I think I'm going to be watching this like over and over again until I get everything down. Thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome. Okay, I think Big Vic, you had questions. I see your mic keep popping off. No? Okay.
Hey, Hustle, can you hear me?
Yes.
I have hopefully two quick questions. One, how do you know if what you're contributing towards a Roth IRA is actually being added up? The reason why I ask is because I think a few months back I started putting something in and then I forgot about it. It was $1,000 and I've only made a fraction of a percent. So I'm wondering if there's anything else you need to do after you contribute. And well, actually, I'll just let you answer that first.
Okay, so yes, you can't just put it into the account and expect it to grow. It won't. You have to invest it. So you put it into the account and then you have to buy shares. You have to go actively trade that account.
Gotcha. Okay, I'll look into that. And then a quick question. You mentioned earlier that there was a sort of like a limit or a cap for depending if you're filing single or married. It was like 139 versus like 200 something thousand.
Mm-hmm.
If you, let's say during the course of, investing or contributing past that, does the Roth IRA stop you from contributing more after that point?
So the Roth IRA is not going to be what stops you. It's when you file your taxes, the government's going to say something. You're going to get flagged.
Gotcha. Okay. So essentially, once you pass that threshold, okay, so then will the money that you've contributed up to that point continue to grow at the rates you expect? You just won't be able to contribute more?
Correct. Yeah. I mean, they'll grow as you trade them, right? So you have to trade them But yeah, they'll continue to grow as long as you continue to trade them and make returns. Absolutely.
All right. Perfect. Thank you.
You're welcome. Okay. Who else?
I have a question.
All right.
So is there a limit to how many times you could withdraw money before being like with the penalty? I don't know if that makes sense.
It
So
does.
like
No,
before 59,
there's no limit. No, not at all. You can withdraw all of it. I wouldn't
and
do that.
then
Bad idea.
and you could do it so like month by month you could constantly withdraw at different times.
Absolutely. You can withdraw every day if you want.
Okay. Thank you.
You're welcome. Okay. Who else?
Hey, Hustle.
Hey.
Um, so tagging back to that, the maximum amount you can make to be contributing to your IRA scenario. Let's say if you're on path, you're doing 6,000 per year to your IRA, and then all of a sudden you get like that raise at work, right? You get that, and you pass the limit. So is your money just like frozen there until you're 59, or is there any ways around this where you can still kind of contribute?
So your
Or
money doesn't get frozen. You can still actively trade it, but you can't
okay,
contribute to the account anymore.
ah, oh, gotcha. I heard there was something called like a Roth backdoor or something like that, where you like deposit into your traditional and then you um, then convert it to your Roth. Is that like legitimate, or is that a
Yeah,
strategy you would probably not suggest?
that's what I was explaining to the gentleman earlier that was saying, what if he gets a raise? Should he skip his raise? And I said, well, you
Hmm.
can contribute to the traditional IRA, and then, when you're ready to retire, you can start rolling over that traditional to the Roth. And if you're not 59 and a half yet, you won't pay the 10% penalty. You'll just pay the tax.
Okay, gotcha. So it's if I have like a 401k like right now just going at my current company, would you like suggest like maybe transferring that over to IRA, or is I, I don't
Yes.
know if there's
So
like yeah.
first off, you can't touch it until you leave. The moment you
Okay.
leave, you can roll it over to a regular traditional IRA and you can trade it actively, right? And
Hmm.
every year you can roll 6,000 out of it into the Roth, right? And you're
Okay.
going to pay taxes on whatever you roll out, right? So the sooner the better, assuming that you continue to grow in your career or continue to
Hmm.
grow in your monthly income, because you're going to be taxed on that traditional IRA account when you roll it over, right? So I'd say it's probably going to be more like 7,500 or 8,000 maybe to get that 6,000, because you're going to pay taxes on a number, and then you want to be able to get 6,000 total into your account. So whatever the taxes are in your income tax bracket minus those taxes, that end number needs to equal 6,000 so that you can max it out basically.
Hmm. Okay. Awesome.
And that's kind of what I'm trying to do right now. So I have a traditional IRA account, and right now I'm just contributing to um, my wife and I's account just out of my pay. Um, but I have a traditional IRA with money that I rolled over from a 401k, 10 years ago, and it's like $15,000 in there, maybe 18 now. I want to grow it to say 50, and then every year I can, I want to grow it to basically where I can contribute 12,000 every year just from that, if that makes sense.
Yeah, that makes sense. I'm kind of in a similar situation. I have like I just got like a notice from my previous company that I have money in the 401k that I can like roll over somewhere, and I was just thinking like, what would be the best strategy with that money I got? And it kind of sounds like what you're mentioning today is something I'm really interested in.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, that I do that. That is one of my strategies. Absolutely. So
Great.
maybe you have heard or not heard me say I've got 4 accounts. I have a margin account, I have 2 Roth accounts, and I've got a traditional IRA. My margin's just for fun. My margin's to do options. My Roth account's to swing shares and build my retirement. My traditional IRA is to build money high enough to where I don't have to contribute $12,000 a year out of my bank account. I can just contribute from that traditional IRA. And another thing that everyone should be aware of is health savings accounts. And I'm going to probably hold a different lecture on that. But real quickly, health savings accounts, I can roll over $7,000 once from my traditional IRA with no taxes, no penalties into a health savings account. Just once, though.
Once per year, or is it like
Once
just
ever.
once ever? Oh,
Yeah.
I
And
see.
again, with a health savings account, you got to have a high deductible health plan plus a health savings account.
Oh, that's really interesting. That's really good information as well. Thank you.
You're welcome. Not like I said, I'll probably have a lecture on health insurance and stuff like that, because that's also equally important for everybody to understand and know, right? Especially with how the government's failing at healthcare. Health savings accounts would be something people should understand as well. A health savings account to me in the health industry is like the Roth retirement is. Right? So you get all these instruments and vehicles rather that you can trade for retirement, or you can invest money in for retirement. But then you've got all these health insurance plans that are PPO, HDHP, you got Obamacare, you got all these things out there. And I consider the HSA to be the equivalent in the health side as the Roth IRA is on the retirement side. But again, that's a different conversation for a different time.
Wonderful. Thank you.
You're welcome. Okay. Anybody else?
I have 2 questions.
All right, go ahead.
So when you're trading on a Roth IRA account, do the funds settle right there and then, or does it still take? I know on Webull it takes, I think, 3 days to settle.
I think it's 48 hours.
All right. And then going back to the like withdrawing money. So when I don't understand, well, I'm not understanding the 10% and the 27% you speak about. So like when you withdraw money before 59, you
So,
mentioned 27%, like depending on what state you live in and stuff.
all right, so the 10% number is just the federal penalty off the top. So no matter what, if you withdraw profits before 59 and a half, you pay 10% off the top. And then if you I live in North Carolina. My income tax bracket, I'm at 32% with state tax. So I'm going to pay 32% off of whatever I withdraw after they take off that 10%.
So it's all dependent off of the tax income bracket that you're already in, not
Correct.
what you would be in after you withdraw that money. If that makes sense, I'm not sure.
It's the same thing. I mean,
So
the
as
tax
you
bracket
withdraw
that
that
you're
money,
in
you're
is going to be when you withdraw that money, right? So at the moment you pull that money out, whatever tax bracket you're in is the tax you're going to pay on it.
okay. I understand. So yeah, year after year, if you're making more monthly and you withdraw more, then you'd be in a higher tax bracket.
Yep.
All right. Thank you.
You're welcome. Okay, Illa, do you have a question? Okay, anybody else have any questions? Nobody? Going once? Going twice? All right,
Hello, hostile. Can you hear me?
I can.
Okay. I was wondering. So, what do you think about trade? Not necessarily actively trading in a Roth IRA, but investing your money into dividend stocks for the compounding effect for over a long period of time, like 30 to 40 years in a Roth IRA.
In my opinion, it's a waste of time. I can make a lot more money swinging shares. I mean, you can make money, don't get me wrong, but if you're long holding something, you're asking for the market to correct and take the money that you've made. If you get into a stock that's $30 and in 5 or 6 years it hits 60 and you continue to hold that and then the market corrects and goes back down to 30, you just wiped out all your gains.
Okay. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Oh, can I just make a clarification? You said you're going to be, or for the most part, you're swinging shares. Is that active, or I guess active hands-on investing when you see a certain like return? I know I was listening to the lecture the other day, and you said you kind of had your 15% goal return every couple of months or so. Is that exactly what you're doing here?
Yes, that is exactly what this is. When I refer to swinging shares and making returns and all that, it's with these accounts. Majority of my money, I'd say about 85-90% of all of my money is in my Roth accounts. I've only got about 8,000 or so in a margin account. Everything else, I mean, I've got like $70,000 plus the 8,000. The 70,000 is in retirement accounts.
Awesome. Thank you so much.
You're welcome. All right. Anybody else?
So the Roth only grows if you make good trades?
Yes. Remember, a Roth is just an account. Think of it as a bank account. Your bank account money just sits there. It's not doing anything. Right? If you go get a CD and you get a 2% return on a CD for 5 years or some crap, you're doing something with your money in there. Same concept here. You get a Roth account, put your money in, it doesn't do anything until you make it do something. You have to actively trade it.
Gotcha. Thank you.
You're welcome. All right. Anybody else? Okay. I'm going to end this recording. I guess I'll stick around for another 5 minutes in case anybody else, any stragglers, have any questions. But I will stop this recording now.